Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Big guy, I see that your strength far exceeds mine. You've probably at least reached the Vajrabit realm, right? An existence like you should have long understood where your path is. Why did you stop by my side? Kasyapa looked at the Buddha Lord and raised his hand. Because you were my most respected teacher in my previous life. I left my hometown and specially traveled across the myriad worlds to bring my teacher back because my Buddhist followers need my teacher. The human race needs my teacher. I'm not the Buddha Lord, Tathagata said again. Kasyapa was silent. Yes, you're not my teacher. My teacher should have died. You're just an ordinary reincarnation of him. The current you can't help Buddha or the human race. He said after a while. No wonder. Tathagata nodded and said with a smile, I was wondering why those high and mighty figures were so respectful when they saw me. It turns out that my predecessor was so powerful. Buddha Lord, that's the Buddhist leader that I've been yearning for a long time. I didn't expect him to die. Even though Tathagata said that, there was no pity on his face. He looked at Kasyapa and said, in that case, you shouldn't stay by my side. You should do what you need to do. Now that the human race is in trouble, although I'm not in the center of the disaster, I know that the human race is in danger. Now that the human race is in trouble, although I'm not in the center of the disaster, I know that the human race is in danger. I think that an existence like you would not want to see this scene and want to do something, right? If teacher is still around, he will definitely have the power to save the human race. I will definitely go back with teacher. But teacher is no longer around. I'm alone and weak. I won't be of much use when I go back. Why don't I stay here and see how teacher acts? Kasyapa looked at Tathagata. Why bother? Tathagata sighed. He turned around and looked at the rising sun not far away. He said without looking back, you think too highly of the teacher. Teacher was born a Buddhist saint. When he grew up, he even founded the human Buddhist sect and saved the endless suffering of the Saha. Later on, he even became the leader of the human race and guarded the human race for tens of millions of years, protecting billions of humans. Teacher is irreplaceable. There was no one like teacher in the first 100,000 years, let alone in the next 100,000 years. You are Buddha. Buddha is you. Teacher, without you, Buddhism is destined to decline in the future. How can I not value teacher? Kasyapa looked at Tathagata's back and cried to the Buddha Lord. Why not? Tathagata looked at the morning sun and smiled. Silly boy, the Buddha is the Buddha Lord, the morning sun, the breeze, the flowers, the ants, the swans, it's me. Tathagata turned to Kasyapa and pressed his palms together. And you too. Kasyapa was shocked. There's no need to worry that the later generations won't have someone like the Buddha Lord. Those who cultivate the Buddhist Dharma advance on the same path. Therefore, in the future, not only will there be someone comparable to the Buddha Lord, there might even be someone who surpasses him. For example, the famous geniuses of the human race and Your Excellency, the common people's regal. After Tathagata finished speaking, he picked up a flower to show Kasyapa. Kasyapa seemed to have seen the Buddha Lord who smiled without saying anything at the Spirit Mountain meeting. Kasyapa put on a relieved smile. He put his hands together and said respectfully, Kasyapa, I understand. I'll return to the human race soon. However, old Tathagata, you were born with knowledge and inherited the Buddha Lord's Dharma inheritance. This is a huge karma. Have you thought about what to do in the future? I already have an idea. Kasyapa didn't say anything else. He bowed respectfully to Tathagata and gradually disappeared into the air. Tathagata turned around and bowed in a certain direction. Please give me one day. After I avenge the villagers of Qingtang village, I will personally visit the human leaders. With that, Tathagata went down the mountain. The emptiness city. Zhou Zhou and company looked at Tathagata's figure, descending the mountain in the illusory mirror image in front of them. The Yellow Emperor could not help but smile. As expected of the reincarnation of the Buddha Lord. Even though he no longer has the power he once had, his perception is still so sharp. He can actually sense our observation. The law of karma is best at such methods. I'm not surprised. Patriarch Lu also smiled. Even though the Buddha Lord has died, our human race has also gained a true god-tier existence like the common people's regal. Coupled with the primordial world left behind by regal Pangu, we don't have to worry about the safety of the human race for the time being. There's no time to lose, the Yellow Emperor said. First of all, we have to go to the Nirvana Buddha realm to welcome the Buddha Lord's corporeal body relic. In addition, we have to bring the Nirvana Buddha realm back. With the Buddha Lord's life and grace, this world will be the supreme holy land for our human Buddhist disciples to cultivate in the future. Secondly, we have to bring back this reincarnation of Tathagata. He is the reincarnation of Tathagata. His aptitude is naturally extremely high. After we awaken his wisdom, the path after the God Spirit will not be too difficult for him. He will definitely grow at a rapid pace. When he fully matures, he might take over the position of Buddha Lord in the future. When the Yellow Emperor said this, he fell silent for a few seconds before looking at Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou, how about temporarily bringing Tathagata into your territory? I know that your territory can allow life forms to grow rapidly. With your territory assisting him in his growth, it will definitely allow him to grow as fast as possible to take over the position of Buddha Lord. When the time comes, let him leave your territory and take over the position of Buddha Lord. As the future Buddhist leader of the human race, Tathagata naturally couldn't be the subject of other lords. Otherwise, what would the other Buddhist disciples and humans think? There was a leader above a leader? One had to know that Regal Pango only held the real power of the first speaker. Compared to the second speaker to the sixth speaker, his status was not much higher. Everyone was equal. Unless one day, a master god-tier existence suddenly appeared among the six speakers. Then, they could separate the highest leadership position. No problem. Zhou Zhou agreed readily. It was just the identity of a subject. Wasn't this as much as he wanted? At this moment, Roygar seemed to have received some news, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. He immediately said to Yellow Emperor and company, "Senior Kasayapa just returned." When the Yellow Emperor and the others heard this, smiles appeared on their faces again. This true god-tier seed is finally back. The Yellow Emperor smiled. Another top-notch high-tier deity-level combat power has returned to our human race. But he also smiled. Everyone chatted for a while longer. Zhou Zhou said that this portion of his divine power could not last much longer. Then, his divine power phantom collapsed into countless starlight spots before disappearing. But he came back to his senses and said with a smile, "Every time I see the Lord of the Blazing Sun, he gives me a different kind of surprise. The next time we meet, he might become even stronger." I hope so. The Yellow Emperor and Patriarch Lu were also looking forward to it. Zhou Zhou opened his eyes in the divine battlefield. He looked around and realized that the 19 deities who had surrendered were protecting him. When he discovered that he had woken up, he immediately flew in front of he. "I've already finished my business." Zhou Zhou looked at them. "Next, this king is going somewhere. You can follow this king or leave the divine battlefield and wait for me outside the battlefield." The gods didn't hesitate at all. "We follow your majesty." Zhou Zhou nodded and didn't say anything else. He followed the spiritual maiden's instructions and flew in the direction of the regional token. Seeing that these subordinate god spirits could not keep up with his speed, Zhou Zhou waved his right hand and brought them. Seeing that these subordinate god spirits could not keep up with his speed, Zhou Zhou waved his right hand and brought them along. A moment later, Zhou Zhou arrived at a wasteland. This wasteland was one of the few places in the entire divine battlefield that did not have many plants and creatures. However, because the divine battlefield was very vast, this place was not too conspicuous. Zhou Zhou flew down with a group of god spirits and landed on a patch of sand. He looked at a clump of grass under his feet. The other god spirits looked at the grass. No matter how they looked at it, they could not see anything special about it. However, Zhou Zhou only took a glance before his gaze landed on one of the ordinary and even slightly wilted grass. He raised his hand and beckoned. The grass flew up and landed in his palm. Then, the surface of the grass changed and finally returned to a palm-sized golden token. It was a high-tier deity-level regional token. Zhou Zhou looked at the regional token. Words appeared. Treasure name. Regional token. Region name. Sprite cultivator god domain. Changeable. Area grade. High-tier deity level. Area. Approximately 6,358.5 billion square kilometers. Treasure introduction. A region token of the Sprite cultivator divine domain. A lord who possesses the region token and integrates it into the territory stone tablet / kingdom golden tablet / kingdom jade tablet / divine kingdom divine tablet will become the region lord of the Sprite cultivator divine domain and obtain an exclusive region treasure chest. Zhou Zhou looked at the information on the regional token and a faint smile appeared on his lips. He also did not expect that he had not even obtained a regional territory at the lower god level. Now that he had obtained it, it was a regional territory at the high-tier deity level. This is the benefit of having strength that surpasses the version. You can obtain items that surpass the version. Zhou Zhou thought. True god-tier strength. Under normal circumstances, he would definitely be a top-notch combatant in the later stages of the Lord of All Races competition. Right now, they couldn't even gather a single worshipped god spirit. The Lord of All Races wasn't even in the middle stage, and he already had the combat power of the late stage. Under such circumstances, although it was a little ridiculous to obtain a territory of this level, it was normal. When we return to the territory, we'll fuse it. Zhou Zhou thought to himself. Then, he turned to look at the god spirits. Let's go. Leave this divine battlefield with me, he said. Yes, your majesty. The god spirits said respectfully. Zhou Zhou acknowledged. Then, with a thought, he teleported with these god spirits and left the battlefield together. Outside the divine battlefield, many factions were waiting here. The ones who were waiting the most anxiously were naturally the Elven Empire and the Vapolius Pantheon. The final ownership of the true god-tier divine artifacts fragment of the spirit-nurturing stone seed would not only determine whether the Elven Empire could advance to the Elven Divine Kingdom, but it would also directly affect the rise and fall of the two true god-tier pantheon groups. Who wouldn't care? Who wouldn't care? At this moment, above the thick fog formed by the surging death aura, an invisible spatial fluctuation appeared. Then, he saw the 19 god spirits led by Zhou Zhou appear almost at the same time. Thick spatial power erupted, forming a spatial passageway with endless suction behind it, directly sucking it into the spatial rift. All the forces present were stunned. Weren't the god spirits behind the common people's regal the god spirits of the Vapolius god system? Why were they following behind the common people's regal and acting like respectful lackeys? The living beings of the Vapolius pantheon had a bad feeling. In contrast, when Elizariel and the others saw Zhou Zhou appear together with the gods of the Vapolius god system, she immediately had an extremely bold guess. Moreover, when they flew towards him, he was already extremely certain that he had guessed correctly. Your Excellency Elizariel. Zhou Zhou came in front of he and said with a smile, Greetings, Your Excellency Regal. Elizariel suppressed her excitement and looked at Zhou Zhou with sparkling eyes. May I ask about the true god-tier divine artifacts fragment of the spirit-nurturing stone seed? It's already in my hands. Zhou Zhou didn't wait for he to finish speaking. He stretched out his right hand, and an incomplete emerald green gem appeared in his palm. It was the true god-tier divine artifacts fragment of the spirit-nurturing stone seed. There you go. He directly threw it to Elizariel. Elizariel was shocked and hurriedly reached out to take it. Only then did she receive this fragment of the true god-tier divine artifacts. Then, she couldn't help but grumble, Your Excellency, this is a fragment of the true god-tier divine artifacts. It can be considered a precious treasure in the myriad worlds. Please be careful. Zhou Zhou nodded nonchalantly. Could he say that he had already obtained dozens of true god-tier divine artifacts with the help of this divine battlefield? It was just a fragment of a true god-tier divine artifact. He really didn't care. Then, he looked at the text notification that had just appeared in front of him. Hint: Elven Empire Faction Quests. Missing True God Tier Divine Artifacts Fragment. Legendary Tier Advanced Grade. Unique. Completed. 300 million faction points. A high-tier deity-level advanced grade Nature Child Elf bloodline. The loyalty of 10,000 Nature Elves and 10,000 legendary tier Mist Cores have been distributed. Your diplomatic relations with the Elven Empire have been raised to the level of worship. You have obtained the friendship of the original Elven Empress, Elizariel. At the same time, Elizariel will help you increase your ranking in the King of 10,000 Kings event. When Zhou Zhou saw this, he opened the faction points rankings. First place, Human, Lord of the Blazing Sun, 2,199,000,000 faction points. Second place, Original Spirit Race, True Lord, 2,150,000,000 faction points. Third place, Shepherd's God Race, Heaven Chasing Lord, 1,835,000,000 faction points. Fourth place, Chaos God's Race, Great One Lord, 1,612,000,000 faction points. Fifth place, Myriad Spirit Race, Spiritual Venerable Lord, 1,350,000,000 faction points. Zhou Zhou smiled. He had finally taken first place again. However, the gap between him and the second place wasn't big. He still had to earn more faction points to widen the gap. We'll talk about it in detail when we get back to the capital, Elizariel said in a low voice. Sure, Zhou Zhou acknowledged. He had already sensed that there was some malice and greed hidden in the surroundings, targeting Empress Elizariel and the spirit-nurturing stone seed fragment in his hands. The reason why he didn't make a move at this moment was probably because of his existence as a true god-tier combatant. Once he left, this group of malicious and greedy fellows would probably tear off their disguises and attack. How about this? I'll send you back. With my galaxy, I'll send you back very quickly. Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and said, Really? Elizariel was overjoyed. If they could have this common people's regal by their side, their safety would definitely not be a problem. Even if Vapolius came personally, he might not be able to obtain this fragment of the true god-tier divine artifacts from him. Really? Zhou Zhou acknowledged. When he accepted the faction quests and handed the spirit-nurturing stone seed to Elizariel, he had already become enemies with the Vapolius Pantheon group. Not to mention that the other party wanted to trap him and destroy the soldiers he had painstakingly nurtured. This was something that Zhou Zhou could not tolerate. In the current situation, it was no longer a matter of whether Vapolius wanted to form a grudge with Zhou Zhou. It was a matter of whether Zhou Zhou was willing to let him off. The answer was definitely no. He had already blatantly dealt with him, so how could Zhou Zhou be kind enough to let him off? He wasn't that broad-minded. When I advance to the mid-tier Dieta level in the future, I'll go and chat with Vapolius. Zhou Zhou thought to himself. Then, he didn't say anything else. He directly took out a galaxy from his inner world and boarded it with the gods before letting Elizariel and his ministers board it. Galaxy's main cabin. Zhou Zhou stood in front of the control panel and said to Wanya, the target is Alanos, the capital of the Elven Empire. Yes, Your Majesty, Wanya said respectfully. Galaxy number 1 is setting sail. The destination for this journey is the capital of the Elven Empire, Alanos. Distance, about 6.4 light days. Time required for normal voyage, about 3 hours and 18 minutes. Time required to travel after entering the Dark Universe, about 80 seconds. Dark Universe engine has been activated. Entering the Dark Universe. Galaxy number 1 has officially entered the Dark Universe. Your Majesty and guests, please wait patiently. Gentlemen, wait 80 seconds. In 80 seconds, we'll be at Alanos. After hearing this, Zhou Zhou looked at the elves and chuckled. All the elves were shocked when they heard this. It only took 80 seconds to cross a distance of 6.4 light days? When they came here, even with the convenience of the teleportation array, it took them more than 3 hours. Wasn't this common people's regal the lord of the myriad races who had just risen? Why did it feel like he was not inferior to those powerful races? Elizariel, on the other hand, was experienced and knowledgeable. Upon hearing this, she sighed with emotion and asked curiously, "Every time I see the technological civilization of the Machina race, I find it very unbelievable. This galaxy spaceship must have been created by the top spaceship manufacturing group of the Machina race, right? Ordinary low-level deity spaceships could not achieve such speed. This was already comparable to the speed of a true god tier. The Galaxy spaceship is a series of spaceships personally built for our blazing sun kingdom by the Master God tier, Your Excellency. Therefore, its performance is slightly better than ordinary low-tier deity-level elementary-grade spaceships." Zhou Zhou asked. The Galaxy spaceship flew around every day, so it was not something that could be hidden. Hence, Zhou Zhou was not afraid to tell anyone about this. He could use the Machina race and the Master God tier to make the other races wary of him. Elizariel was indeed very shocked when she heard this. It was personally created by the Master God tier? They looked out at the dark universe. The dark universe was incomparably dark, like a bottomless abyss, making people feel fear just by looking at it. Everyone only took a glance and did not dare to look anymore. Those enemies who tried to rob us on the way probably didn't expect us to leave so quickly, right? Elizariel smiled. Unless a true god tier pursues them personally, there won't be any enemies chasing after them. Zhou Zhou nodded and asked, "Oh yes. Why isn't Your Excellency Octavel here?" After all, this was a fragment of his true god tier divine artifacts. Why did he send a junior over? Wasn't he afraid that it would be snatched away by other factions? Your Excellency Octavel went to explore the mystic realm with another true god tier a few days ago. She won't be back for the time being, Elizariel said. Zhou Zhou frowned. True god tier also needed resources. Moreover, at their level, the resources required might not even be able to be gathered by an entire world. Therefore, most true god tiers spent most of their time traveling the myriad worlds, trying their luck to find a world or high-level mystic realm that could produce the resources they needed. If Octavel had gone to the mystic realm with other true god tiers to search for treasures, there was indeed nothing they could do. However, if that was really the case, it meant that the other party didn't think so from the beginning. This time, he was able to take out his true god tier divine artifacts fragment from the mystic realm, even with the help of the common people's regal. Therefore, he wasn't even interested in staying behind to wait for news. He smiled inwardly and didn't mind. Then, he threw a leaf to Elizariel. This leaf was called the Leaf of Fertility. It contained a divine power spell that Octavel had specially customized for the spiritual maiden. Originally, he had asked Elizariel to give it to Zhou Zhou because he wanted Zhou Zhou to use this Leaf of Fertility to suppress the spiritual maiden's strength and increase the probability of recovering the true god-tier divine artifacts fragment. Unexpectedly, Zhou Zhou did not use it at all. Zhou Zhou had no intention of keeping the leaf. It was just a leaf treasure that carried the divine power of an intermediate true god tier. To Zhou Zhou, his chaos holy power was not much weaker than this thing. Elizariel couldn't help but feel a little surprised when she saw the intact and undamaged Leaf of Fertility. She didn't expect it to be useless. However, when he thought of this person's past achievements, he immediately felt that it was very normal. Hence, after sincerely flattering Zhou Zhou, she accepted it without asking. Soon, 79 seconds passed. Everyone felt the spaceship under their feet tremble slightly. Then, the scenery outside the virtual exterior mode suddenly changed. The incomparably huge Divine Kingdom star and the elven mother tree that was like a heavenly canopy were immediately reflected in everyone's eyes. "We are at Alanos." A reassuring smile appeared on Elizariel's face. Only when he arrived at his territory did he feel truly safe. At this moment, the spirit-nurturing stone seed true god-tier divine artifacts fragment in Elizariel's hand suddenly lit up with a resplendent emerald green light. The next second, this fragment of the true god-tier divine artifacts actually flew out of his hand, directly passing through the cabin wall of the galaxy and flying to the outside world. Finally, it landed in the hands of a woman with long, smooth emerald green hair, a fair face, and exquisite and graceful facial features. She was wearing a gorgeous and huge green gown with white edges. "Greetings, Your Excellency," he said respectfully. Octavel did not speak. Instead, she looked behind him. Zhou Zhou slowly walked over and stood in front of Octavel. "Greetings, Your Excellency Octavel," Zhou Zhou said politely. "Your Excellency, common people's regal." Octavel smiled and said, "I've heard of your name a long time ago. Today is our official meeting." "Officially? Your Excellency, have we met before?" Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows and asked. "When you first came to Alanos to accept the faction quests, I was in the Divine Kingdom. I saw you then, but I was busy with other things at that time, so I didn't come to see you, the strongest lord of all races." Octavel felt a little emotional. Back then, the strongest lord of all races was just a reward title given to you by the Supreme Will in the previous event. Now, I'm afraid that you, the strongest lord of all races, have already become a reality. Even if it's the truth, it won't change anything. Zhou Zhou shook his head. The enemy has never weakened. Instead, they have become stronger. Of course, Octavel knew that the other party was referring to the civilizations behind the lords of the myriad races, especially those with top bloodlines. However, he still smiled and said, "At least among the lords of the myriad races, you can already obtain benefits almost unscrupulously." "That's true." Zhou Zhou smiled. "Is Your Excellency Regal interested in going to the Divine Kingdom Star with me?" Octavel suddenly said. Zhou Zhou naturally knew that the other party was referring to the projection of the Divine Kingdom Star in the cosmos, which was the Divine Kingdom Star above his head. He didn't sense any evil intentions from the other party. Even if he had evil intentions, he probably wouldn't be able to do anything to him with his current strength and means. Therefore, he thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. Octavel smiled. He looked at Elizariel and said, "Your Majesty, come with us." "Yes, Your Excellency," Elizariel said respectfully. Then, the three gods flew into the Divine Kingdom stars in the sky and sat down in an emerald green palace. "Your Excellency must have something to say for me to come here, right?" Zhou Zhou did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. "There is indeed a small matter that I would like to ask Your Majesty for help with," Octavel said and looked at Elizariel. "Your Excellency Regal, you also know that Elizariel wants to upgrade this elven empire to the first elven divine kingdom. And I had a good personal relationship with an elder of the elves, so I became one of the true god-tier worshippers of their elven empire. Even though the other two true god-tier cultivators weren't found in the beginning, the other two true gods were already found when the fragment of the spirit-nurturing stone seed was recovered." When Zhou Zhou heard this, a look of surprise appeared on his face. This small fragment of the true god-tier divine artifacts was actually related to whether the Elven Empire could find the other two true god-tier offerings? Since this fragment of the true god-tier divine artifacts is so important, you still dare to go out at this time. Nully wait. Zhou Zhou finally understood. No wonder she returned so early. "It seems that Your Excellency Regal already knows." Octavel smiled. "Even though on the surface, I make the other god spirits think that I'm going to explore a mystic realm with my good friend. But in fact, this is just an operation of mine to deceive others. The goal is to let those hostile god spirits in the outside world think that I don't value this fragment of the true god-tier divine artifacts too much. This world is just so strange. When the owner of the treasure doesn't value this treasure, then even if the other god spirits know that this fragment of the true god-tier divine artifacts is also a treasure, they won't pay too much attention to this matter. However, if I pay too much attention to this fragment of the true god-tier divine artifacts, then even if it's a master god tier, they will probably take a few more glances at this fragment of the true god-tier divine artifacts. I was the one who covered it up previously. Actually, I've been secretly paying attention to the whereabouts of this fragment of the true god-tier divine artifacts. Now that this fragment of the true god-tier divine artifact has returned, I naturally appeared immediately." Zhou Zhou nodded and did not ask further. Instead, He returned to the original topic. Then, what exactly is this small matter that Your Excellency mentioned previously? The conditions for advancing to the Divine Kingdom have basically been gathered by the Elven Empire. Next is the most difficult stage. Octavel said solemnly, take down a divine kingdom and even help the regal obtain the position of the Lord of all races. Octavel encouraged with all her might. Elizariel also looked at Zhou Zhou expectantly. I see. Zhou Zhou smiled and nodded. Then, he suddenly said expressionlessly, I can't help. Octavel and Elizariel were stunned. How could he reject them so easily? Your Excellency Regal, think about it again. As long as we take down the behemoth divine kingdom, we can obtain the treasures of the entire divine kingdom. Moreover, I heard that Your Excellency is very fond of bloodline items and collecting corpses. As long as you're willing to help us, I can make the decision to give you the corpses of true god-tier worshippers after we kill the true gods of the behemoth divine kingdom. I can give you as many behemoth corpses as you want. In addition, we can also— Your Excellency. Zhou Zhou suddenly stood up and interrupted him. The human race is being besieged by people of foreign races. As one of the leaders of the human race, it's really difficult for me to have a leisurely chat with Your Excellency here. Please forgive me for being rude. I have to return to human territory first. With that, Zhou Zhou teleported and disappeared from the Divine Kingdom star. Octavel hurriedly searched for Zhou Zhou's aura, but she could not find him. He had a look of pity and helplessness. I originally thought that this common people's regal would be open to an invitation to become our powerful helper since he became famous at a young age and has absolute strength. I didn't expect he to be so cautious. What a pity. With one less true god-tier combat power, there will their Divine Kingdom token. Our plan is to start a war with the Divine Kingdom Lord faction of the Beast Race, Behemoth Divine Kingdom. When the time comes, Your Excellency Regal, please appear on the battlefield and help us. As long as Your Excellency is willing to help, after our Elven Divine Kingdom is established, we will definitely be the first to establish friendly diplomatic relations with your Blazing Sun Kingdom. In the future, we can also advance and retreat together. We can probably be many more risks in this Divine Kingdom advancement war. Elizariel also sighed with emotion from the bottom of her heart. He is indeed cautious. It's said that when he first came to the Supreme Continent, he almost never took action. He relied on his subordinates to fight. Later on, after he had the strength of a god spirit, he began to dare to show his talents. After that, he shone uncontrollably, making all the races in the world pay attention to him and even fear him. Octavel nodded. Looks like I have to find other true god tiers to help. Even though the Behemoth Divine Kingdom is a new Divine Kingdom, it's not easy to deal with. Elizariel nodded in agreement. On the other side, in the galaxy which was flying in the dark universe, Zhou Zhou sat on the main seat in the captain's room and looked at the heart that was floating in midair. It looked full of vitality and was surrounded by dense natural elements. It was the nature child bloodline of a high-tier deity-level advanced grade. Zhou Zhou took a few glances and chose to absorb it. As Zhou Zhou fused with this child of nature bloodline, a warm energy quickly radiated throughout his divine body, making he feel that his chaotic human bloodline had evolved again. He opened his eyes and looked at the text notification in front of him. You have absorbed one child of nature bloodline, high-tier deity-level advanced grade. Your chaos human bloodline has unearthed more potential and advanced to the low-tier deity-level elementary grade. Your sixth senses powers have been greatly enhanced. You have awakened the mid-tier deity-level elementary grade. Chaos human talent, chaos law talent. You have awakened the high-tier deity-level advanced grade child of nature talent. Nature language. You have awakened the high-tier deity-level advanced grade child of nature talent. Nature coordination. You have awakened the high-tier deity-level advanced grade child of nature talent. Nature elemental control. You have awakened the high-tier deity, advanced grade child of nature talent. All things affinity. You have awakened the high-tier deity, advanced grade child of nature talent. Summon the god of oak. You have awakened the high-tier deity, Advanced grade child of nature talent. Creation elf. You have mastered the common knowledge of the elves. You have grasped the secret inheritance of the elves. Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows in surprise. This high-tier deity-level advanced grade bloodline actually allowed his chaos human bloodline to advance to the mid-tier deity level? One had to know that the first demon's bloodline, as the top bloodline of a master god tier advanced grade, could only elevate his chaotic human bloodline from low-tier deity-level elementary grade to low-tier deity-level advanced grade. Even this did not allow him to break through the bottleneck of the mid-tier deity level and reach the mid-tier deity level bloodline. This was strange. Out of curiosity, he carefully recalled the feeling of his bloodline advancement. After a long while, he finally realized something. So after I absorbed the first Demon Deep Abyss bloodline last time, my Chaos Human bloodline has already reached the critical point of advancement. This high-tier deity-level advanced grades child of nature bloodline is only the last straw that breaks the camel's back. Zhou Zhou thought to himself. Then he opened it to check the specific information of these bloodline awakening abilities. The first was naturally the Chaos Law talent awakened from the Chaos Human bloodline. Race talent name, Chaos Law talent. Talent level, mid-tier deity level elementary grade, enhanceable. Talent description, the Chaos Humans are the strongest race that cultivates the Chaos Laws. Even Chaos Beasts can't compare to them. When Chaos Humans began to comprehend laws, it was easier for them to comprehend the Chaos Laws. After mastering the Chaos Laws, the Chaos Humans would cultivate the Chaos Laws faster than other life forms. When using the Chaos Law skill, the power of the Chaos Human race's Chaos Law skill would be even stronger. When the Chaos Humans advance to a higher level of God's Spirit through the Chaos Laws, there will be a higher chance of success. Chaos Law talent is useless to me. Zhou Zhou looked at this talent and shook his head indifferently. If anyone else obtained this talent, they would definitely be overjoyed. This was because the strength of the chaotic laws could be considered one of the best even among the endless laws. However, he walked the supreme laws that transcended the laws of chaos. Cultivate the laws of chaos? Wouldn't it be better for he to find a subject who cultivated the laws of chaos and used the Lord's law skill to control the other party's nomological comprehension and law skill? He didn't mind and looked at the other child of nature Aaron's racial talents. Race talent name, words of nature. Talent level, high-tier deity level advanced grade. Talent description. The possessor of the child of nature's bloodline is born with the magical language to communicate with all things in nature. Moreover, most natural creatures are willing to communicate with the child of nature. Racial talent name, nature coordination. Talent level, high-tier deity level advanced grade. Talent description. The possessor of the child of nature bloodline is born with the ability to coordinate the various energies in the body with the outside world and allow them to coexist harmoniously without conflict. Race talent name, nature elemental control. Talent level, high-tier deity level advanced grade. Talent description. The possessor of the child of nature bloodline can control any form of natural energy, including but not limited to earth, water, wind, fire, lightning, light, dark, and other natural energy. When controlling these natural energies, the child of nature can control them more meticulously than ordinary life forms. From there, he can perfectly use the natural energies under his control. Race talent name, all things affinity. Talent level, high-tier deity level advanced grade. Talent description. As the favored child of the laws of nature, the child of nature is born with a natural affinity for all things in nature. It is easier to obtain the various opportunities hidden in nature. Sometimes, he can even obtain the help of the will of nature. Race talent name, summon the god of oak. Talent level, high-tier deity level advanced grade. Talent description. As the favored child of nature's will, the child of nature is born to receive the protection of nature's will. When the child of nature is in danger, he can summon a high-tier deity level advanced grade god of oak to protect himself. When he is out of danger, the god of oak will return to his own will and continue to serve the nature will until he is summoned by the child of nature again. Race talent name, Creation Elf. Talent level, high tier deity level advanced grade. Talent description, Child of Nature is both a favored child of nature's will and a top-notch elven bloodline life form. It could use its child of nature, sacred blood, to create wood element sprites that were loyal to it. The more child of nature sacred blood used, the more precious it would be, and the stronger the wood element sprite created would be, and the higher its potential would be. After Zhou Zhou saw Child of Nature's talent, he could not help but raise his eyebrows. This ability awakened from the Child of Nature bloodline was really not bad. Just summoning the God of Oak made the Child of Nature's bloodline very strong. As for the other faction quest rewards, 300 million faction points and 10,000 legendary tier mist cores were needless to say. Zhou Zhou glanced at the attributes of the 10,000 nature elves. However, to Zhou Zhou's satisfaction, the 10,000 nature elves rewarded by the faction mission were indeed the high elves of the elves. The worst of them were actually legendary tier, and the highest was even a nature elf with potential at the high tier deity level. Zhou Zhou immediately decided to incorporate most of them into the Blazing Sun army, while a small portion would be incorporated into the Heavenly Map army. Zhou Zhou currently had 4 main battle troops and 1 Homeland Defense army under his command. The Homeland Defense Army was in charge of the domestic territory and did not have many combat opportunities. It was not suitable for them to quickly increase their strength. These nature elves who urgently needed to convert their potential into strength naturally could not be arranged there. As for the Dragon God Army and the Monster Army, they only accepted dragons and monsters, which was not suitable for the nature elves. Under such circumstances, the Blazing Sun Army and the Heavenly Map Army were naturally the best choices. In particular, the bloodline ability of the nature elves was very suitable to be a scout. That was why Zhou Zhou had given a portion of the Heavenly Map Army to Wu Tu. As for the final reward of raising diplomatic relations with the Elven Empire to the level of worship and obtaining the friendship of the original Elven Empress Elizariel, at the same time, Elizariel would help him raise his ranking in the King of 10,000 Kings event. These non-material rewards were also very beneficial to the future development of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. However, he had to wait for the benefits to come out. After checking all the rewards, Zhou Zhou recalled what Octavel had said to him previously. He shook his head. Zhou Zhou did not want to get involved in a Divine Kingdom level war just yet. Who knew how many true God-tier existences would be involved in a Divine Kingdom? Furthermore, as a Divine Kingdom level Lord faction, his influence was not as simple as being worshipped by a true God tier. Even if he was just a newly established Divine Kingdom Lord faction, it was possible for he to use methods at the top of the true God tier, or even at the Master God tier level. Even though Zhou Zhou looked extremely glorious now, and even the super experts outside said that he was the strongest God spirit that was comparable to a true God tier. But so what? It was not as if he had reached the peak of true God tier. Zhou Zhou was very clear-headed. Therefore, he didn't agree to Octavel's request. Instead, he said cowardly that he wanted to return to the human race. What true God tier corpses, true God tier bloodlines? Nothing is more important than my life. When I increase my strength step by step and reach the true God tier, or even the Master God tier level, can't I just get whatever he says? Zhou Zhou muttered in his heart. He wouldn't be so stupid as to be a suicide squad for others. The galaxy had passed through numerous security checks in the air and arrived at the capital of the Blazing Sun Kingdom while he was thinking. At this moment, other than the Homeland Defense Army, the soldiers and generals of the other armies were not here. Zhou Zhou did not find anyone else. He directly used the spatial passageway in the center of the capital and arrived at the Divine Kingdom. He found the kingdom's golden tablet and took out the regional token of the spirit-nurturing divine domain. He looked at it for a while before placing it on the kingdom's golden tablet in front of him. The next second, a suction force suddenly came from the kingdom's golden tablet and directly sucked this regional token into the golden tablet. A text notification appeared. Congratulations on obtaining a high-tier deity-level regional token, Spirit Nurturing Divine Domain. You have officially become the regional lord of this region. You have obtained a regional treasure chest, exclusive to the Sprite Cultivator God Realm. An emerald green treasure chest that was more than a meter long appeared out of thin air in front of Zhou Zhou. The treasure chest was carved with a map of the spirit-nurturing divine domain. When Zhou Zhou looked at it carefully, he realized that he could enlarge the map's perspective, allowing him to see everything in the entire spirit-nurturing divine domain. When he discovered this, he could not help but be surprised. A god spirit-level regional treasure chest is indeed extraordinary. With this high-tier deity-level territory fusion certificate, he would be able to fuse the spirit-nurturing divine domain with the blazing Sun King, thus increasing even the treasure chest itself has become a treasure. Zhou Zhou marveled. Then he directly opened the treasure chest. Then a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. This was because this high-tier deity-level treasure chest actually contained not one treasure, but two treasures. One of the treasures was none other than a high-tier deity-level territory fusion certificate. With this high-tier deity-level territory fusion certificate, he would be able to fuse the spirit-nurturing divine domain with the blazing Sun King, thus increasing the level of the blazing Sun King's territory. Good timing. Zhou Zhou looked at this high-tier deity-level territory fusion certificate, and a smile appeared on his face. He originally wanted to use the gradeless territory fusion certificate he had obtained from the Myriad Races Lord Battlefield event. He had previously obtained 3 of these items through his activities, but he had never had the chance to use them. He had thought that after obtaining the spirit-nurturing divine domain, a high-tier deity-level territory, he would finally have to use one. Unexpectedly, it still didn't work. I don't know if it's a coincidence to open this thing, or if it's a god spirit-level regional treasure chest. There will always be a corresponding territorial fusion certificate attached. Zhou Zhou pondered. He had a faint intuition that it was most likely the latter. Otherwise, it would be too difficult to obtain a god spirit-level territory fusion certificate. He had conquered many empire-level armies so far. He had not even seen many legendary tier territory fusion certificates, let alone god-tier territory fusion certificates. If a god-tier regional treasure chest could produce a god-tier territory fusion certificate, it would solve the problem of many lords having high-quality regional tokens but being unable to fuse them. Zhou Zhou did not think too much about it. He would know about this when he conquered another god-tier region in the future. He looked at another treasure. In the end, he discovered that it was a high-tier deity-level advanced grade pet egg with potential called Spirit Cicada. Zhou Zhou glanced at it and expressionlessly threw it into the military merit exchange system. He already had Nazario, a master god-tier advanced grade divine pet with the highest potential. Naturally, there was no need to nurture a pet with the potential of a high-tier deity level. Leave it for his soldiers. But then again, judging from the value of the treasures, in the process of conquering other countries' territories, he had opened countless regional treasure chests. In the end, not only was there only one item inside, but most of it was mist core, equipment of the same level and quality in the same area, soldier-type buildings that could recruit a small number of people of foreign races, low-grade territory fusion certificates, mineral resources, and so on. It had been a long time since he had seen such a good treasure chest. Therefore, he was rather satisfied. Then, he didn't waste any time. He directly used the newly opened high-tier deity-level territory fusion certificate and chose to fuse the spirit-nurturing divine domain with the blazing Sun King. The next second, an illusory map appeared in front of him. It was the map of the entire blazing Sun Kingdom. It was roughly divided into 2 parts, one big and one small. The largest was naturally the blazing Sun Kingdom's mainland territory, while the smaller blazing Sun Kingdom's territory was the spirit-nurturing divine domain. A text notification appeared. Please choose the regional territory you want to fuse from the following map. I wonder if I can fuse my territory like this? Zhou Zhou clicked on the spirit-nurturing divine domain and started to feel uneasy. One had to know that the prerequisite for using the territory fusion certificate was to fuse 2 territories, which had to be connected territories. If they were not connected, they could only be fused by constantly connecting the intermediate regions until they were connected. The blazing sun kingdom and the spirit-nurturing divine domain were billions of kilometers apart. Could this be connected? Zhou Zhou was a little uncertain. Honestly, if he hadn't learned through the spiritual maiden that the spirit-nurturing divine domain wasn't a fixed domain on the ground, but a mystic realm constructed from the divine power of a god spirit who had died in battle, it was possible for it to fuse with an unconnected domain. He probably wouldn't even have the thought of giving it a try. But soon, the nervousness on his face vanished as his expression turned into one of pleasant surprise. This was because he was pleasantly surprised to see that on the map, the spirit-nurturing divine domain, which was an unknown distance away from King of the Blazing Sun, had suddenly disappeared. Then, in the next second, it appeared directly above the Blazing Sun King. Zhou Zhou looked forward and saw the outside world through the spatial passageway. A spatial passageway emitting emerald green light had already appeared in the air not far from the spatial passageway of the Divine Kingdom. He could sense it. Through this spatial tunnel, one could enter the spirit-nurturing divine domain. At the same time, rows of new text notifications appear one by one. You have chosen the spirit-nurturing divine domain, high-tier deity-level regional territory, as the target for your royal capital's territory fusion. Fusion in progress. Fusion successful. Congratulations, your territory, the Blazing Sun King City, epic-tier regional territory, has successfully fused with the spirit-nurturing divine domain, high-tier deity-level regional territory. Your Blazing Sun King, epic-tier, regional territories level has increased greatly. You have advanced to a high-tier deity-level regional territory. Your territory of the Blazing Sun King, high-tier deity level, has been slightly increased. Your Blazing Sun Desert, white platinum tier, territory has perfectly inherited all the territory resources of the original territory and the fusion territory. The terrain of your royal capital's territory, the Blazing Sun Royal Capital, high-tier deity level, has been greatly improved. A large amount of high-quality vegetation and a large number of high-potential creatures have been added. There is a high chance that God-tier divine quality vegetation and high-potential creatures with the potential of God spirits will appear. Your energy density and energy level of the Blazing Sun King, high-tier deity level, has now reached the standard of a high-tier deity level regional territory. Please continue to fuse regional territories and increase the level of your regional territories. Zhou Zhou nodded in satisfaction after reading it. He wouldn't have to worry about the lack of regional territories for a long time to come. He looked down at the majestic Blazing Sun King. He closed his eyes and sensed for a while before opening his eyes. A look of pleasant surprise appeared in his eyes. The energy density and energy level of the Blazing Sun Kingdom has indeed increased greatly. It's already comparable to the energy density and energy level of the spirit-nurturing divine domain. At this level of energy density and energy level, even if my subjects have low potential, they can rely on the rich natural energy to be reborn and forcefully change the upper limit of their potential. This is especially true for babies born later. They can receive the nourishment of the rich natural energy in their mother's body. From the very beginning, they will change their body and soul potential. That way, once they are born, they will have outstanding potential. After such a long time, it can even benefit the subjects under my command for thousands of years. Furthermore, after the spirit-nurturing divine domain fuses with the royal capital, its rich and outstanding energy environment will gradually affect the surrounding environment, causing the energy density and energy level of the surrounding environment to slowly increase. In the end, it might even increase the level of the territory in the surrounding area. Zhou Zhou was very satisfied. This spirit-nurturing divine domain would have a profound impact on his territory. Then, he flew down from the sky above the capital and landed in front of the Lord's shop. He took a look inside. What surprised he was that Zhou Qingmin wasn't playing a virtual game. Instead, he was reading a book seriously. Zhou Zhou was greatly comforted. The old man had finally let go of his game. At this moment, Zhou Qingmin also noticed Zhou Zhou coming over. His Majesty is here. Zhou Qingmin placed the book on the table. A dazzlingly colorful book that was sandwiched in it fell down, revealing the title of the book. The Nightmare Realm is divided into secret manuals. I'll teach you to reach the mythical tier rank in 3 days and become a gaming big shot. Zhou Zhou. He should not have had any hope for this old fellow. Are there any goods today? Zhou Zhou asked. Of course there are. And it's not just some new stuff. Zhou Qingmin had dark circles under his eyes, but he acted as if nothing had happened. He quickly took out 3 red boxes from under the counter and placed them on the table. He opened them one by one. Zhou Zhou looked at it. The first red box contained a golden red sun-shaped pendant. Treasure name: Orofa's Blessing Pendant. Treasure grade: True God Tier Elementary Grade. No usage requirements. Treasure effect: after wearing this treasure, when forging equipment below God Tier quality, there is a 50% chance of quality +1. Treasure effect: after wearing this treasure, when forging equipment below God Tier quality, there is a 50% chance of quality +1. When forging equipment from the low-tier deity level elementary grade to the high-tier deity level advanced grade, it could increase the success rate of forging by 20%, and there was a 1% chance of quality +1. Treasure introduction: the God of Sun and forging accessory that Orofa personally created for his beloved disciple, Jacker. He wanted to use it to increase Jacker's confidence in forging equipment. Jacker had always kept it seriously, but when it came to forging equipment, he, who was extremely proud, rarely used this true God-tier divine artifacts. Good boy, this is a true God-tier divine artifact. Zhou Zhou sighed. This was the first time he had obtained true God-tier divine artifacts from the Lord's shop. Speaking of which, Orofa, the god of sun and forging, was indeed a natural god spirit from the sun star. He was very generous. Treasures at the true God-tier divine artifacts level were actually given to a disciple who had yet to become a god spirit as if they were toys. If news of this got out, who knew how many people would be envious? He looked at the second item and raised his brows. Then, he looked at the third item and realized that these 2 items were actually Jacker's skill books on divine artifact forging. Good God. Today is Jacker's special performance as a divine artifact forging apprentice. Zhou Zhou muttered to himself. He came back to his senses and carefully looked at the skill information of the 2 skill books. Skill name: Sun Sacred Fire Technique. Skill quality: True God Tier Advanced Grade. Skill description: a true God Tier fire control technique created by the heavenly god of forging and the sun, Orofa. It allows life forms to control the power of the sun's sacred fire by absorbing the supreme sun's sacred fire scattered in the myriad worlds. The sun's sacred flame's killing power was unparalleled. Moreover, it had an extremely high efficiency in refining raw materials and forging fusion equipment. It was extremely suitable for creating God-tier divine artifacts. Skill name: Supreme Sacred Fire Forging Technique. Skill quality: True God-tier Advanced Grade. Skill description: a top-notch true God-tier crafting technique created by Orofa. It can perfectly forge all kinds of raw materials and equipment at the true God tier and below through the refinement of the supreme fire, Sun Sacred Fire. Even raw materials and equipment above the true God tier could be tempered and forged to a certain extent. The only flaw was that the supreme sacred flame forging technique could only enhance the refinement and forging effect of raw materials and equipment with young attributes. There was also a small chance of attaching a trace of the power of the sacred sun flame to the materials and equipment. For materials and equipment of the Yin attribute, if the supreme sacred flame forging technique was forcefully used to forge, there was a higher chance that the material and equipment would be destroyed, and a lower chance that the material and equipment would be turned into young attribute materials and equipment. All 3 of them belong to Jacker, and they're all related to forging. Zhou Zhou smacked his lips. Nully, what a pity. If only it could be used by others, then there would immediately be a second divine artifact forging apprentice in his territory. In the future, there might be 2 divine artifact forging apprentices in his territory. Even though Zhou Zhou did not lack divine artifacts, it was naturally best to have such talents, and the more the better. How much mist core would these 3 goods cost? Zhou Zhou asked. True God tier elementary grade treasure, Orofa's Blessing Pendant. It's worth 50,000 legendary level mist cores. True God Tier Advanced Grade, Sun Sacred Fire Technique, worth 10,000 Legendary Tier Mist Cores. True God Tier Advanced Grade, Supreme Sacred Fire Forging Technique, worth 15,000 Legendary Tier Mist Cores. Zhou Qingmin chuckled. The corners of Zhou Zhou's mouth twitched. It was so expensive. However, with his current wealth, he could indeed easily afford it. Zhou Zhou did not waste any time. He handed 75,000 Legendary Tier Mist Cores to the other party and successfully obtained the 3 items. Zhou Zhou placed Arofa's blessing pendant in the king's treasure box. In the future, he might even attempt to forge a divine artifact. At that time, this treasure would be of use. As for the last 2 skill books, because they could not be used by others, Zhou Zhou directly learned them. This made some knowledge about how to condense the sun's holy fire and forge divine artifacts appear in his mind. After he roughly went through all the legacies, Zhou Zhou fell into deep thought. Looks like I can first condense some of the sun's sacred flame. Then, I can use the supreme sacred flame forging technique to refine my divine artifacts. This way, even if I can't raise the grade of my divine artifacts, I can still make their bodies stronger. Moreover, when they attack, they can also carry a trace of the power of the sun's sacred flame. It can be considered as a small strengthening of my true God-tier divine artifacts. He would do it if he wanted to. At this moment, Bai Yun and the rest had yet to return, so Zhou Zhou simply returned to the Divine Kingdom and began to condense the sun's sacred fire. As the supreme star, the sun star, shone on the myriad worlds, it spread throughout the myriad worlds. It could be said to be everywhere. However, in the myriad worlds, there were very few life forms who controlled the sun's sacred flame. The key was that it was extremely difficult to extract the sun's sacred flame from the light of the sun star. However, Jacker's sun's sacred fire technique had given him an exclusive technique for refining. The sun's sacred fire technique was created by the heavenly god Arofa. As a god born from the sun, his method of refining and condensing the sun's holy fire was naturally extremely authoritative. Zhou Zhou only operated it for a while before condensing a fist-sized sun's sacred flame. Even though it's only so big, I'm only tempering it, not forging a new divine artifact. It's enough. He looked at the sacred fire of the sun and was rather satisfied. Then, he took out his universe-destroying blade and began to temper it with the sun's sacred fire. This true God-tier advanced grade divine artifact could be said to be the #1 offensive divine artifact among the many true God-tier divine artifacts in his hands after all. He would probably use this divine artifact frequently in the future. After tempering this true God-tier divine artifacts, Zhou Zhou planned on tempering the heaven and earth concentric armor, world stepping boots, sword of new dimension creation. After tempering this true God-tier divine artifacts, Zhou Zhou planned on tempering the heaven and earth concentric armor, world stepping boots, sword of new dimension creation. Time passed slowly. The sky gradually darkened. Zhou Zhou, who was refining the universe-destroying blade, suddenly opened his eyes and looked out of the Divine Kingdom. Outside the Divine Kingdom, in the blazing Sun Kingdom, Bai Yun had already led 20 Galaxy Victoria squadrons. Soon, the other party brought a large number of generals into the Divine Kingdom and came in front of Zhou Zhou. Then, he knelt on one knee and said respectfully, "Your Majesty, we have successfully returned. Currently, there are already more than 100 trillion human clansmen in the territory of the 3 human empires who have successfully retreated to the primordial world. According to a legion commander of the Holy Sword Empire, a third of the human race has retreated to the primordial world. I estimate that within 3 days, the entire human race should be able to enter the primordial world. This is the summary of our battle against the enemies of the people of foreign races today. Please take a look, Your Majesty." After Bai Yun finished speaking, she opened her personal terminal and projected the war into the air in front of Zhou Zhou. Today, in order to protect the human race and retreat to the primordial world, Bai Yun and the other soldiers and god spirits had fought a total of 22 billion people of foreign races. These enemies were enhanced by the titles of the King of Lutes and the Strongest Lord. They obtained a total of 360 million legendary tier mist cores, 2,511,000,000 epic tier mist cores, more than 32,056,000,000 extraordinary tier mist cores, more than 52,360,000,000 diamond tier mist cores, more than 65,032,000,000 white platinum tier mist cores, more than 99,088,000,000 yellow gold tier mist cores, more than 246,032,000,000 white silver tier mist cores, and more than 542,090,000,000 green bronze tier mist cores. 3.106 trillion skill books and 3.108 equipment, 90,000 trillion units of basic materials, more than 3,080,000,000 units of basic elemental gemstones, more than 10 million units of thunder element gems, more than 120 million units of life elemental gems, more than 150 million units of death elemental gems, 3,090,000,000 origin crystals, 40,209,602 green bronze tier lord talent crystal fragments, 58,816 holy spirit tier scarlet divine crystals, more than 110 million units of low tier deity level divine crystals, more than 6 million low tier deity level divine artifacts, and also more than 15 million divine spark fragments, god tier medicinal herbs, god tier ingredients, god tier ores, god tier blueprints, and other treasures. Then, he looked at the insight defection list and the military strength list. After today, even though Zhou Zhou had used his insight defection on the Chaos Gods race and the Myriad Spirit race, he had not obtained any additional troops. However, the Lords of the Star Alliance gave him many surprises. Previously, after he had become a god spirit, the 100-odd Scarlet God spirits that had been immobilized had been tried to instigate insight defection by the Lords of the Star Alliance after being detained. The result was very gratifying. Of the 116 Scarlet God spirits, 40 had been insight defection by the 32 Lords of the Star Alliance. Currently, there were still 76 Scarlet God spirits that had not been insight defection. There was no need to be anxious about the remaining 76 Scarlet God spirits. After the cooldown of the insight defection ended tomorrow, he would carry out the insight defection until all the insight defections were successful. Not bad, not bad. Zhou Zhou was very satisfied with this result. Before today, he had 18 god spirits under his command, coupled with the 32 god spirits of the Vapolius Pantheon group that he had taken down in the divine battlefield, and the 40 Scarlet God spirits that the Star Alliance Masters had insight defection on. He now had a total of 90 god spirits under his command. By the time he insight defection the remaining Scarlet God spirits in the future, the total number of god spirits under his command would directly exceed 100, reaching a total of 162 god spirits. Even though this number was far inferior to the factions of the Race Alliance that wanted to destroy the human race. However, it could not be underestimated. Apart from that, another group of Lords of the Star Alliance who did not obtain the quota for the insight defection had also given Zhou Zhou 421.6 million people of foreign race soldiers after following the army to participate in the war with the foreign races today. The total number of soldiers under Zhou Zhou's command was 15,957,371,102. Including the Star Alliance's current total military strength of 3.417 billion. Zhou Zhou's total military strength had already reached an astonishing 19.3 billion. Among the troops under his command, excluding the Star Alliance, there were 1,824,059,965 black iron rank soldiers, 2,015,819,633 green bronze tier soldiers, 3,380,574,412 white silver tier soldiers, 3,240,900,967 yellow gold tier soldiers, 256,796,880 white platinum tier soldiers, 1,615,421,698 diamond tier soldiers, 1,065,282,526 extraordinary tier soldiers, 159,236,529 epic tier soldiers, and 1,205,920 legendary tier soldiers. As for the god spirits under him, After today's battle, their strength had also increased astonishingly. Among them, Zhou had advanced to a mid-tier deity-level advanced grade. Guo Qiao, Qi Xintian, and Yuan Song had advanced to the mid-tier deity-level intermediate grade. Vicky, Bai Yun, Wu Xian, Feng Luo, Suin, and Luo Shang had all advanced to low-tier deity-level advanced grade. The strength of the other god spirits had also increased to a certain extent. And what surprised Zhou Zhou was, after today's war, 5 new low-tier deity-level elementary grade god spirits had appeared in the Blazing Sun army under his command. These 5 newly advanced low-tier deity-level elementary grade deities had all advanced to the deity realm by purchasing the Book of the God Spirit in the military merit exchange system. The Book of the God Spirit that I obtained is finally starting to work. Where are the 5 new god spirits? Let me take a look. Zhou Zhou swept his gaze across the generals in front of him and quickly landed on the 5 humans. The 5 newly advanced human god spirits immediately stood up following his words. "Greetings, Your Majesty." They knelt on the ground excitedly and bowed respectfully. Yang Zhen, Zhao Dehai, Long Qi, Zhang Feng, and Shi Chueyun. As expected, it's the 5 of you. Previously, when I saw you practicing law skills in the time world, I felt that you had almost mastered your respective law skills and should have reached the threshold of advancement. As expected, I've successfully ascended to godhood. Congratulations. Prime Minister, after the meeting ends, we'll hold a national god ascension banquet with them. We'll do it live and let all living beings in and outside the country know that 5 new godly ascension cultivators have appeared in our human race. Zhou Zhou first congratulated the 5 of them, then said to Zheng Yuanqi, it was a joyous occasion for a life form in their country to become a god spirit, be it kingdoms, empires, or divine kingdoms. They all had to celebrate, and their Blazing Sun Kingdom was naturally no exception. A nationwide event like the God Ascension Banquet could greatly increase the confidence and cohesion of the country after all. It could also show the strength of the country to the outside world. Not only could it attract foreign geniuses to join, but it could also prevent some thieves from having ill intentions. In short, there were many benefits. It would be a waste of such an opportunity if he did not organize it properly. Yes, Your Majesty. Zheng Yuanqi smiled and nodded. In fact, he had the same intention, but since His Majesty had spoken first, there was no need for he to open his mouth again. Thank you for your grace, Your Majesty. The 5 newly advanced god spirits were flattered. They were even more grateful to Zhou Zhou and this country that was filled with vitality. They knew what they were doing. The reason why they could advance to god spirits so quickly and have combat power comparable to veteran god spirits. Firstly, with the help of the Book of the God Spirit, it saved them the long process of comprehending the laws. Secondly, with the help of the legendary tier Lord Talent, Blessing of the War God, they could avoid the long process of accumulating promotion energy. Secondly, with the help of the legendary tier Lord Talent, Blessing of the War God, they could avoid the long process of accumulating promotion energy. Coupled with the other territories and lords, they had the guts to fight a mid-tier deity-level god spirit when they had just advanced to low-tier deity-level elementary grade. If they were given a full set of divine artifacts, they were confident that they could defeat even a top mid-tier deity-level expert. This was extremely unbelievable for other newly advanced god spirits. This was because these 5 new god spirits who came from the human race had battle prowess comparable to those new god spirits who came from high-level bloodline races. They were only inferior to the new god spirits from top bloodline races like the original spirit race, the chaos gods race, the shepherd's god race, and the myriad spirit race. Therefore, they felt that they had advanced to become god spirits because of His Majesty. It actually had nothing to do with them. They even felt that they had been forcefully piled up into a powerful god spirit by His Majesty with various resources. Coupled with the powerful god spirits around them, they did not even have a promotion ceremony. Why should they have an additional promotion ceremony as soon as they arrived? Therefore, at this moment, they were even a little terrified. Zhou Zhou's will like light could tell at a glance what the 5 new god spirits were thinking. He thought for a moment and looked at Zheng Yuanqi. How about this? After escorting the humans back to the primordial world, we will hold 100 gods meeting in the entire Blazing Sun Kingdom. Take it as a ceremony for all the gods of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. We welcome them to become the worshipped god spirits of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. When the time comes, we'll hold a god ascension banquet for all the gods who have advanced in the Blazing Sun Kingdom. At the same time, we'll have a meeting in the middle. Zhou Zhou looked at Heros and the others and teased, "If you want to participate, we have enough resources for you to hold a god ascension banquet. After all, our Blazing Sun Kingdom doesn't lack such resources." His words were magnanimous, and the gods smiled when they heard them. However, Heros was the first to shake his head. "My god ascension banquet has been held tens of thousands of years ago. I can't do this again." "I'm not interested either," Yuan Tsong said calmly. "Then can you throw me a banquet for my ascension?" Vicky asked expectantly. He was a god spirit from the Ice Demon clan. However, not long after he became a god spirit, he realized that his kingdom had already been conquered by Zhou Zhou. Then, he was recruited by Zhou Zhou as a subordinate. Following that, he continuously joined the continuous war. Nully, the god ascension banquet? To Vicky, this only existed in legends, so he was looking forward to it. "Of course not," Zhou Zhou said without hesitation. Vicky had been fighting diligently for so he naturally couldn't mistreat her. Wasn't it just the god ascension banquet? It wouldn't be a problem even if he held it 10 times for him. What more once? Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and said, "At that time, all the divine spirits who participate in the 100 deities meet will be able to obtain a set of divine artifacts at the composite strength level for free." As soon as he said this, many god spirits were stunned. "I already have a set of divine artifacts," Luo Sheng whispered. "Me too," Feng Luo chimed in. "Your Majesty, please save it for the new god spirits in the future." A god spirit said, "A mere set of divine artifacts is nothing. You may have your own set of divine artifacts, but do you know you can keep the second set of divine artifacts or use them interchangeably? You don't have to worry about the new god spirits in the future. We are not lacking in divine artifacts for them." Zhou Zhou waved his hand and said nonchalantly, "Nully, what a joke. If it weren't for the fact that legendary tier soldiers couldn't use chaotic sacred power to control divine artifacts in advance like him, he would have wanted his legendary tier soldiers to each have a divine artifact. Now, he looked at the more than 10,000 divine artifacts and nearly 100 true god-tier divine artifacts in his king's treasure box. He felt a headache coming on. How should he use so many divine artifacts? Lend it to the human race? There were only over 100 god spirits in the human world. After Zhou Zhou had lent out each god spirit one divine artifact of the 10,000 pieces he had, there were still more than 9,000 divine artifacts left. How could he lend them out? Should he forcefully stuff them all to these god spirits? "I have to find an opportunity to use these divine artifacts, otherwise, it would be a waste of resources." Zhou Zhou's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly had an idea. Zhou Zhou turned towards Zhang Yuanqi. "Prime Minister, send out an announcement later on to the entire High Continent, inviting the god spirits of the High Continent and even from the myriad worlds to come to our Blazing Sun Kingdom and become our specially hired god spirit. As long as they are willing to sign an employment contract and be hired by us, and are willing to fight for us, we can rent them a divine artifact and promise them that as long as they are willing to work for us for 10 years, this divine artifact will completely belong to them." Everyone was shocked when they heard this. His Majesty was really generous. After experiencing the initial shock, Zhang Yuanqi quickly calmed down. His Majesty is too famous and is feared by all races. They want to get rid of him as soon as possible. There are already people of foreign races coveting the human race now. Under such circumstances, I'm afraid there won't be many god spirits who dare to accept our invitation," he said. However, he smiled and continued, "no matter how great the threat of the people of foreign races is, it's not as important as the future of the god spirits. There will always be deities like desperados who will come to us to fight for the future and power. The conditions given by His Majesty should be enough to attract them. I'll send someone to do it tonight, Zhang Yuanqi said solemnly. Remember to make sure that the contents of the contract are good. These god spirits who can apply for the job will probably not join our blazing sun kingdom easily. They will only be hired by us like mercenaries. Don't leave any loopholes in the contract for them, Zhou Zhou reminded. Yes, Your Majesty, Zhang Yuanqi said respectfully. Zhou Zhou nodded and looked at Bai Yun. Take the soldiers back to get some rest. The next 2 days of war will only get harder. Today was only the first day that the humans retreated to the primordial world. Many people of foreign races had probably not reacted yet, so they only brought so few soldiers over at the last minute. By the time they reacted and decided to stop the humans from retreating, that would be when the humans would face true danger. It would also be the most dangerous and tiring thing for his soldiers. Yes, Your Majesty, Bai Yun said respectfully. Then he hesitated for a moment and asked, Your Majesty, should we do the hunting mission for the Eye of the Heaven's anger at the same time? Zhou Zhou shook his head and said, First, protect the human race and retreat to the primordial world. We'll talk about the hunting mission of the Eye of the Heaven's anger's target after the human race retreats to the primordial world. We'll accept the territories and subjects left behind by the 3 human empires. It was only the 11th day of the King of 10,000 Kings event, and it was not the time to decide the final victor. So what if he stalled for a few days and let the other party lead for a period of time? With the Eye of the Heaven's anger, Zhou Zhou was confident that he could surpass them all in a short period of time and take back first place. Yes, Your Majesty, Bai Yun said respectfully. After that, everyone discussed the development of the future for a while before the temporary war wrap-up meeting ended. After everyone left, Zhou Zhou formed the Heaven's Anger Seal, and his consciousness entered an extremely calm state. He began to search for the Eye of the Heaven's Anger's hunting target. Even though he had decided to protect the human race to the primordial world before starting the hunt for the Eye of the Heaven's Anger, he could not waste the remaining 2 days. He had to take the time to collect more Eye of the Heaven's Anger targets to prepare for the counter-surpassing operation with faction points in the future. Just as Zhou Zhou entered a state of deep emotion and began to observe the supreme continent, he immediately sensed that his current state was abnormal. I feel that the consumption of energy when I use the Eye of the Heaven's Anger has decreased even more. Furthermore, the duration of my use of the Eye of the Heaven's Anger has also become longer, and my observation range has also increased by at least 100 times? Zhou Zhou was shocked. He carefully sensed the changes before gradually realizing the source of the changes. It's because I've become a god spirit and my soul has become a divine soul, so the strength of the Eye of the Heaven's Anger has increased. In addition, my will-like light realm. No, it should be mainly because my will has entered the will-like light realm. That's why the effect of the Eye of the Heaven's Anger has improved by leaps and bounds. In comparison, the effect of advancing to the God Spirit realm on my Eye of the Heaven's Anger is average. Zhou Zhou pondered. He could feel it. The higher the level of a powerhouse, the more they valued willpower. For example, Abyss Will, Heaven Will, Immortal World Will, Nature Will. They no longer called themselves gods, but simply called themselves so-and-so wills. There was even less of a need to talk about the Supreme Will, the leader of all wills. It ruled the Supreme Universe and the 3,000 heavenly worlds. The Eye of Heaven's Annihilation. I'm afraid it's a will-type secret technique. That's why it has such a powerful effect on the advancement of my will realm. Zhou Zhou thought. He clicked his tongue in wonder. He did not expect that the seemingly ordinary ability to find enemies he had obtained from the Bodhi Supreme back then was actually a will-level secret technique. As expected of the strongest event reward from the Supreme Will event back then, his attacks were extraordinary. He didn't think too much about it. He calmed his mind and began to search for a target to hunt. 4 hours later, Zhou Zhou opened his eyes. 112 Eye of the Heaven's Anger request to kill the target. He took a deep breath and was a little excited. It's almost 20 times more than before. The effect is too terrifying. Zhou Zhou looked excited. If he had relied on the Eye of the Heaven's anger to regain first place on the rankings, he would have been 60% confident. However, he was 80% confident now. The effect of the Eye of the Heaven's anger had increased so much that he did not even need to rely on faction quests to obtain a large number of faction points by killing a large number of targets. If not for the fact that he was wary of the lords of the top bloodline races and might use some tricks to increase his faction points in the future, Zhou Zhou even had the confidence to say that he was 100% confident of obtaining first place. Including these 112 hunting targets and the 26 targets I already have, I have a total of 138 targets. Even if these goals are only worth 10 million faction points, they can easily obtain 1.3 billion to nearly 1.4 billion points. This is only the first day. In the future, as I use the Eye of the Heaven's anger again and again, this number will only increase. Getting first again isn't a dream. Then, he didn't say anything else. He walked out of the Divine Kingdom and went outside, preparing to upgrade his territory. The Life Elemental Gems and Death Elemental Gems he had obtained today could already meet the new requirements for upgrading his territory. Naturally, he had to start upgrading without stopping. Soon, even though the originally small blessed land here had already become the foundation of the Divine Kingdom, it was not a problem to upgrade his territory. A large number of upgrade materials disappeared in no time. A text notification appeared. Congratulations, your Epic Tier Elementary Grade Lord's Paradise has been upgraded to an Epic Tier Intermediate Grade building. Your territory has been upgraded to an Epic Tier Intermediate Grade territory. Your Epic Tier Elementary Grade Blessed Land Myriad Formation has been upgraded to the Intermediate Epic Tier Blessed Land Myriad Formation. Durability of Territory Stone Tablet increased to 50 billion/50 billion. Your territory has expanded to 1.2 million kilometers times 1.2 million kilometers times 100,000 kilometers. All fog monsters within the territory of the new territory have been expelled. Scarlet fog will not appear in any of your territories. You have received an upgrade reward, Basic Building Blueprint Treasure Chest, Epic Tier Intermediate Grade. Lord Talent Notification. The upper limit of the enemy lord's power that you can use Insight Defection to increase to True God Tier Advanced Grade. Lord Talent Hint. Your monster ranches can be upgraded. Lord Talent Hint. Your mysterious caravan faction has increased. Lord Talent Hint. The strength of the clergy in your Goddess of Life's shelter has increased.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.